Hey everyone, Pastor George here, and we're going to go back to one of my favorite pet topics, which is the Supreme Court. And of course, there's lots of stuff that the Supreme Court does, but I only bring you guys, I think, cases that have to deal with religion. And so yesterday, the Supreme Court heard an argument that involved 303 Creative LLC versus Elenis. And of course, that's gobbledygook. What does that mean? Well, what that means is this. So in Colorado, they have a law called the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, which is called CADA. And it prohibits any business that is open to the public from discriminating against people you're going to sell to based on lots of different stuff. But for this case, sexual orientation is what's at the heart of it. And so not only is it prohibited that you can't sell someone to something because of those things, right? So if a gay couple came into your store, you're prohibited from not selling them, like a muffin. Let's say you had a muffin store, I don't know, right? And so not only is that prohibited, that you can't do that, but you also can't make a statement that says, I don't serve these types of people, right? That type of thing. So that was the law, and it was made, but even before it was kind of completely made, this woman in Colorado, whose name is Lori Smith, which is the 303 Creative LLC. She's a graphic designer. She does websites. She sued Colorado because she's a Christian, and she doesn't want to make websites for same-sex weddings, right? Because she makes wedding websites, or she was getting into that business, and she didn't want to be forced to have to do that. And she wanted on her website to explain why she does that. And of course, not only does that violate, the whatever, you can't serve these types of people thing that Colorado says, hey, you can't do that. But it also involves the other part of the law, which says, hey, this type of business is not, we don't, welcome this type of business, which is also against the Colorado law. So she sued, and it worked its way up the courts, and it made its way to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is deciding if this act, this Anti-Discrimination Act, does it compel artists to speak or stay silent, which violates the free speech clause of the First Amendment, right? That's the question. So does this force people who are artists to speak or to not speak? And of course, that's kind of a weird thing to think about, because we don't normally think of website designers as artists. But of course, if you're making things, you're an artist, right? I think we'll get into kind of the problems of this and why I don't think it's really a speech thing, or it's more difficult to make it a speech case. But so because she wasn't allowed to write that I don't do this here, right, type of thing. So this obviously involves religious exemptions or objections to things, and I think that that's important for all Christians to kind of pay attention to, because in many parts of the country we're already a religious minority. It could very well be that way in the future, and so it's important to remember that these types of cases are good and important, because they help protect religious minorities and all religious people. And so how this shakes out it'll be kind of interesting. So essentially, the people, everyone on the Supreme Court agrees that she is an artist, right? Actually, what's more difficult is why limit it just there? That's actually kind of the objections that some people had to her argument, saying that she can't do this, right? It's well, what's to say a chef isn't an artist, or other people aren't artists, right? Depending on how you talk about things, all sorts of things could end up becoming artists. And so it kind of shows that it's a little shaky when it comes to what is free speech and what isn't. I think her lawyers shouldn't have done this as a free speech thing. Instead, what they should have done is they should have said this violates her free exercise, her right of free exercise of her religion, and then done that, because the Supreme Court's, with the current lineup of people they have, has been very friendly to those types of arguments. So I'm not quite sure why her lawyers decided to do this, but but she's essentially saying that as an artist, you're telling me what I can and can't make. That's her argument, right? And of course, I think a lot of us don't want that either. We don't want artists to be told what they can and can't do. Just like we don't want Jewish bakers to be forced to bake cakes for Nazi parties or something like that, right? We understand that there's good reasons to discriminate, and maybe even bad reasons, but like we are fine with allowing the freedom for people to do that. Of course, though, there's good arguments against that, right? Like when it comes to essential services or being just general treatment of people poorly. Like if just 52% of the population is able to say we don't like 48%, and then just discriminating against them in all businesses, right? We probably wouldn't like that idea either. And so that's why these acts are put in place. But I think the problem here that's at the heart of it is that this act that was put in by Colorado ends up not having any exemptions for religion. Or if they are, they're so narrow that it's going to keep triggering this stuff over and over again. Because just a few years ago, they were before the Supreme Court about the baker who refused to bake a cake for the gay wedding. And so this is just a problem that Colorado has, and the legislators there need to get it under control. They need to write a better law that's not going to trigger this stuff. Maybe putting aside any prejudice they have. And so I think that that this could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if the Supreme Court supports her at all, because it has that religious element to it, and they're going to say that, well, religious speech is protected. Or I could even see them going against her because, like, it's too broad, the claim that she's making about this, and it's not if she's selling a service, is it really that much of an imposition to not have to write this type of thing instead of just explaining it or something like that? I think, again, it would just end up being triggered and going back up, but I could see them going either way on this one. But anyway, just an important thing to be aware of when it comes to our United States polity. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you tomorrow for our Bible study recap. And, well, yeah, that's about it. Peace out.